Hello, because I'm also doing well. Okay, so today's class we are talking of under our principles of computer programming, we are talking about arrays in programming. What are these when you are talking of arrays in programming? Okay, so when we talk of arrays is a variable with a single name that represent different items. It's the same as a variable, just like how you declare a variable, just like how you use your variable. It's exactly the same as arrays. It's just that this one is when you have a list of items or a list of things that you will want to declare. So when you have a list of things within your that you want to use in your application, then instead of declaring a variable, you are going to declare an array. Advantage of array is like it will allow you to, it will actually allow you to, it will allow you to code or to save. Remember, we said a variable, it's a name given to a place in memory. So now when you want to store a lot of items in a variable, I mean in your memory, then you need to use an array. An example of the concept of array that you can use are such as when you want to store list of employees and organization. So because you are not just going to store one employee, you want a list of employees. And as well as we can say the score of a class of students, or the store or the scores of students within the class. You want to get a lot of scores for these students, so therefore you are going to use an array. Or just their student names or their student numbers, because those are a lot of items that you want to store, so you use then an array. Okay, so we have, let's say, 3 types of array, but in this case, in this one, we are going to talk about mostly 2, and then we can go to probably 3. So the common one, the easiest one, it's the one-dimensional array. Okay, so with one-dimensional array, this is just an array that like a list of items or a table that consists of one row. Okay, so one row and one column of items that you want to store. So when it's just in one list, in one item, in one column, that is one dimension. Okay, and this is how it looks like. So suppose you want to store a list of shoppings or shopping list. So then you have item 1, and you have item 2, and you have item 3, as well as item 4. So this is just one dimension because you have one list. It's just one line list. When it comes to 2-dimension, then the 2-dimensional is when you have a table, okay, a table that is made out of columns as well as what? Rows. So that becomes a 2-dimensional array. So if you look at how it is, then you have now, you have this becomes the row. You have 1, 2, 3 rows, and you have 1, 2, 3 columns. So what you see inside here, the numbers, they are called subscripts. So these numbers, they represent as to how many rows and how many numbers are there. So this becomes a 2-dimension because you have rows and columns, and this becomes one dimension because you have one column, basically one row, and just a few more columns or just one column. So you only have one list. It's just list going down, right? So now, how do you then declare a variable, an array in one dimension, especially in Visual Basic? How do we do that? Okay, so the dim statement needs to be there to declare an array, just like we declare a single variable. So the dim statement needs to start, because you can't have an array unless you have declared it. It's the same as a variable. You can't have a variable unless you have declared it first, right? So now the syntax, the general syntax is you having dim, and then you put your array name, and then you put your subscript. The subscript is to say how many items are you going to save. And then now you need to include your data type. Okay, so this is just how you do it when you're declaring a variable, an array in Visual Basic. Okay, another example is like this. So you have now your dim, just like how we declare our own variables. And then you have customer name. Custom names becomes now your array name. And then you have your subscripts. The subscript is to how many items are going to be stored. We are going to store 11 items or 10 items. So to say you are going to store 10 items as what? As strings. So you have your 10 items. They are the ones that we call subscripts. And you're going to store them as strings. So like this, you have declared now an array. Okay. So let's look at this example of how an array can be used and how you can create a system using array. And we are going to use Hamdoom example. And on the LMS, I also share a link for Hamdoom when he's developing his course, his application. Please do watch out the code, right? So this is how it looks like. So in this, what we are seeing here, you have dim. This is the declaration. Array becomes the name 29. So you are going to have 29 numbers as integers, because this system is going to generate random numbers. That is the purpose of this system here that is being developed. And then we have dim I as integers. Now I want you to know that when you're using arrays, for you to use them, you also need to include loops. Remember in the previous videos, we have spoken about the loops. So then you now say for I is equal to 0 to 29. Okay, so it's going to count from 0 to 29. And we are saying, so this array here, which is this one, is the same as I. So now we are just going to connect them, is equal to random. So random numbers times 100. So it's going to generate numbers in between 100, the numbers that are from 0 to 100. So it can generate any numbers from there. And these numbers should be displayed now in the list box. So please, if you have Visual Studio on your own computer, do try it out and see what happened. But this is how the pseudo codes or the codes within Visual Studio, how you can declare a variable and how you can use the variable. The array. I'm sorry, I keep on saying variable, but we are talking of arrays. Okay. So the next thing also is to initialize of one dimensional array. Remember, when you are initializing, you are just assigning values to an array. That is what is initialization means. You are assigning a value. I hope you remember in our previous class, you are assigning a value to this particular array. And how do you then assign? So we have some examples here that you can actually use, right? So of which now we have this is how you can declare, initialize. So of which you need to start with a declaration, like this is a declaration saying dim int data. So this is the name of an array. How do you know that this is a name of an array? It's not a variable. It's because of these brackets here. So that means this represents an array as integers. So you didn't include as to how many subscripts, because then they are already shown here that you are going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can do this way of what? Of initialization. Remember, this equal sign means you are initializing. You are storing a number there. And then you also have this way of initialization. So to say dim, there comes array names, and then you say as a string. So now you are assigning values. We have Peter, you have John, you have Brock, you have James, you have Maria. So you are assigning. So you can assign in this way. So it is also okay. And you can also assign in this way. If you can see how this assignment, it's using the index. Okay, it's using the index. Index just shows the position and the length of those particular arrays. Okay, so it's how it's, because this is also another way of declaring an array. You have dim, and then you have a name of an array. You open your brackets, you have 0 to 2. So this is also another way of doing it as a string. Then when you're going to assign or initialize the values, so you do it this way to say the empty that is at 0, it should store Martha. The one that is at index of 1, it should store Anthony. The one that is at index of 2, it should store Prince. So these are the way of you can initialize your arrays. So let's now look into 2-dimension. How do you then do it? In 2-dimension, how do you declare now 2-dimension? So in 2-dimension, this shows that these are 2-dimension because sub 1, which is subscript 1, this represent a row, okay? And sub 2 represent columns. I hope you are taking note, okay? So you declare with dim array name, sub 1 and sub 2, they are just split by the comma, and then you say as data type. So, and this is how it looks like. So you are going to have 10 rows and 3 columns. Okay, so as a string, again, we are using the same guys example of an app that is using that uses the example is how you can declare 2-dimensional variable, 2-dimensional array. So let's see how he did it. So this is actually how it looks like. So you are going to have 10 rows and you are going to have 5 columns because they are starting from 0 to 9. Because of the array is telling you 0 to 9. Okay, so if it's coming from 0 to 9, then it's going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. So you are going to have 10 rows and 5 columns. So when you are declaring now your variables, then your loops. So you have I and K. So these are 2 because remember you are dealing with two rows. Okay, you are dealing with 2-dimension. So it needs 2 for loops. It needs 2 loops because then 1 is for the table. One is for the row, 1 is for the column. Like this first one here, this is the one that is representing the rows. And the second one here is the one that is representing the columns. Okay, then we are saying now I, which is now this array, IK, which is for the column, and then, for the row and the column, is going to generate random numbers, okay, from 0 to 100. So it should be between random numbers that is going to generate 0 and 100. And of course, it's going to input now the what? Our array. And then this is how the outcome is going to look like. So because you have now included, otherwise what you could, if you want to leave this one out, you can also leave this one out, and then you can just say list box dot add, and then you say a, okay, and how you want it to be printed. But please do watch the video and see how he is coding, and also do imitate as he is busy coding for you to understand. So just know that is how we deal with a two-dimensional array. Okay, so when you are initializing the two-dimensional array, this is how you do it. So how you are going to do it is, so you declare the variable, and you can use the word new integer. Then you can say we are going to have three rows, and we are going to have 2 columns. This is what it means. And how you now initialize the values. So meaning the first row is going to have 1, then is going to have 2, and then 4. Then you can also assign in this way. So this one, it's 1, this one represent 1 row, the second row, the third row. Okay, so that is what it represents. And of course, like I said, you have 3 dimension also. Sometimes you can have a 3 dimension. And when you have a 3 dimension, this is how you declare the 3 dimension to show that you are going to have, you know how a cube look like? A cube, that's how it looks like. So you are going to have 3 rows, 3 column, 2 columns, I don't know. But the 3 dimension, like how complicated it is, that's how it is. And this is how you can as well assign values or initialize values to the 3 dimensions. So that's how you can initialize values to the to arrays, whether in one dimension or 2 dimension. And by now you know how to declare arrays both in a single dimension and the 2 dimension. Okay, so then we come to the part of searching. Remember, when you have an array, that means you have a list of items either in a group. So when you have list of things in a group or the list, there are some items that you'll want to be searching. Okay, so you want to search. Suppose you have a client and need some items, or that he wants to do shopping, then they are going to give you a key. There will be a list, or there will be a number. We will use that number to check in the list of your items that are in the shop, and see if you are able to find that particular item your client is looking for. That is just now searching, and it's basically what it means. So an example that I'm telling you is this one. So we have index. These are index. Like I said, they are the ones that tells at which position the element is, and whatever that is inside here, these are called elements. So you have element 1, element 2, element 3, element 4. Now the element 1 is under index 0, element 2 is under index 1, element 3 is under index 2, element 4 is under index 4. So suppose you are looking for that particular item, and they will say, get for me an item that is at index number 2. So when you are searching, you look for that. Where is the index number 2? You get to the index number 2, you get the element in that. Okay, so that is actually how the searching is. So if you find the value, then it's become successful. If you don't find the value, then it's definitely unsuccessful. Okay, so that is the search. And then we come to parallel array. Okay, when you are using parallel array, with a parallel array, how it's actually work is that, you know, when you have this list of items, okay, the list of items. Remember, when you're using an array, they need to be of the same data type. Yeah, but imagine when you have students, okay, with students, you have student names and you have student numbers and you have marks, CA1, CA2, CA3, okay? These values, I mean, these items or this description of the students, you want them to be printed as one record, okay, for both students. So then you can actually put them in a parallel to say you have an array of student names, you have an array of student numbers, you have an array of CA1, you have an array of CA2, you have an array of CA3. Then when you are going to print them out, they will be printed in just an array. So that is what parallel is. If you look at this example from Prof. Sadam, so this is what he indicated. This is what we call parallel. From Jim's last name, Jim, GPass, and then balance Jews. So you can see how he just put them into parallel. So that means he paralleled them. And when he's going to print out the outcome, you see to be the student name for one student, for the second student, for the third student. So please do watch out. I also share the link as to how he's coding and how he's going to run the code, so that you yourself can also please do practice. So if you don't want to use the console, what you can use here, you can also use the list box. You can as well use the list box. Okay, so that is how you will use parallel now in arrays. The last thing that you'll be talking about is sorting process. When you want to sort and arrange arrays according to their values in ascending or descending order. So when you want now to store your arrays, maybe you want them to be from the first one to the last one, and from the last one to the first one. So it depends on as to how you want to store your arrays. So you can actually store them however you want, ordering them. That is just storing, because you are dealing with data, and you will definitely know how to store them. So there are some techniques that I actually use in now programming, and we have the first one, which is the Bible sorting. I also put videos there on the LMS. Please do watch them. We have selection sort, and we have insertion sort. Okay, so that is what sorting is, and this brings us to the end of this unit. So please do watch those videos that I put on the LMS, and for any question, we'll meet in the class. So bye.